Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you've never been here before, hi, welcome. My name is Kailin and I post videos mainly about intuitive eating and eating disorder recovery. So if that's something that you're interested in, I'd love for you to stick around and click onto that subscribe button down below and become part of our little family. But for today's video, I put on my pajamas for the day because I finished work, I washed my hair, and I was just in the mood to sort of chat and rant and just get down and dirty with diet culture, you know, because she's a bitch, isn't she? But in this video, we are going to be debunking common diet culture myths, and we've got a long road ahead of us. So let's just get started. When I'm referencing diet culture myths, I'm usually talking about popular dieting advice that is spread through a variety of channels. It could be a fitness influencer or even an online coach, your friends, coworkers, corporations, you know, when we're thinking of it from like a marketing standpoint. And under the umbrella of corporations, I would also loop in apps, kind of like MyFitnessPal or Noom, aka things that should not be on your phone, okay? If they are, take this as a sign. Delete them, delete them, delete them. And these dieting myths can also be perpetuated by physicians or even medical professionals sometimes. So it really is everywhere. And it can be really hard to escape diet culture sometimes. Diet culture for years and years, hundreds of years, I don't even know, has been perpetuating so many myths and falsehoods around food, what we should eat, what we shouldn't eat, how much we should eat. There's so much diet culture. And oftentimes there is zero scientific evidence backing a lot of these claims. And a lot of the time, these dieting myths are not actually for the sake of health, but more for the sake of financial gain, especially when we're thinking of it from like a marketing corporation perspective. And even an influencer perspective as well, when people are selling ebooks and dieting tips and books on how not to bloat. Anyway, and believe it or not, but most things from diet culture are just false. And so there's a lot of reasons why companies and people would promote diet culture myths. And I'm saying myths because it's not true. Nothing that we hear from diet culture is typically true, at least to the extent that it demonizes food or anything like that. So some of the reasons, as we mentioned, that these myths are around would be financial gain, a false sense of superiority. A lot of people who diet usually have this sense of superiority around themselves compared to the person or the people who don't. Another reason can be to sort of be condescending to other people. Diet culture is also perpetuated to further marginalize fat bodies, something also known as fat phobia. And these myths are also spread because a lot of people believe in them. And so they don't actually realize that they are myths until we look at the science and look at the facts. So in this video, we're just gonna go over some myths that I hear very often, whether these myths are from my clients when it comes to recovery coaching, whether these myths are things that I see online, and some of these myths are things that I used to believe myself as well. So let's begin. The first myth is that we should eat 1,200 calories per day. I usually see this targeted more towards women. And this is such a common number that people tend to gravitate towards within like weight loss communities. And I want to make it very, very, very clear. It doesn't matter if you are like sitting in bed or on the couch all day. 1,200 calories is not enough. 1,200 calories is actually barely enough for a toddler. And if you think as a grown adult, you should be eating less than a toddler, I think that there are some deeply rooted issues there for you to work out in therapy of some kind. The thing about calorie counting is that it is a very, very dangerous tightrope to begin walking on. A lot of the time it opens the doors for other disordered behaviors to sort of present themselves in your life. And an example of that can be reading labels obsessively, weighing your food, using measuring cups to measure your food or tablespoons for condiments or whatever it might be. And this is not a normal behavior. When we're thinking of measuring our food consistently, you're not really creating a connection between yourself and your body. You're completely removing your intuition and relying on like a plastic measuring cup to tell you how much you need to eat that day, which is crazy because our bodies need different amounts of food every single day. And if every single day is the same, then that's very much an indication that you are not being intuitive with it at all, and most likely are restricting and being quite rigid, which can create a lot of problems in the future. So this myth, I just want to say, is fucking false. Really, really false. And I do not care when people talk about doing like these online calculators and where it says like, my FitnessPal tells me that I only need 1,230 calories per day. My FitnessPal is not your body. Those apps, those calculators, the serving sizes, whatever you might see, that is not your body. That is not intuition. That is not how you ate as a child, most likely. It is very, very rare that a child's food is being measured. Most of us have the capacity to be able to follow our intuition. And calorie counting is one of those things that is not going to bring us closer to understanding and knowing ourselves better. Instead, it's going to bring us further away from that and potentially lead us down a path to disordered eating, if not an eating disorder itself. All right, so let's talk about the next one, which pisses me the fuck off. It makes me so mad. And it's this idea that women should eat less than men. Yeah, doesn't that sound shitty? It's not true. A huge concern that many of my clients have is eating more than their partners. And the fact that we're even comparing what two people eat to one another is just, it doesn't make sense scientifically. All of our bodies are designed differently. We all have different needs. And this idea that women should eat less than men is rooted in the patriarchal standard that women should be smaller or more delicate compared to male counterparts. There's also this my dog is barking. I live in a zoo. 1 second. Now that the dogs have gone back to sleep, let's pick up where we left off. Not only is there this patriarchal standard that women should eat less or be smaller, there's also this idea that women are just naturally or like biologically they should weigh less than men. And in my experience with my friends, this typically isn't true. Many women in the world are naturally taller than some men. Many women in the world are naturally heavier than men. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it doesn't need to be fixed and it doesn't need to be corrected. And one of the things that really hits home over here is that there are studies that show that when women are around men, they tend to eat less. And the reason for ignoring these hunger cues is not physiological. It's not because we are suddenly not as hungry around men or anything like that, but it really is patriarchal instead. In general, it's never ever a good thing to compare what you are eating to somebody else. Focus on the food that's in front of you. Focus on making memories, and also understand that people are not really fixated on what you're eating or how much you're eating, etc. And if they are, that's a them problem. And they're basically announcing to the world that they have an issue with food themselves. So don't be hard on yourself. And if anybody ever makes a comment, that's on them. And it's not your responsibility to educate them. It's not your responsibility to explain anything to them. I usually either ignore the comments completely and pretend that they didn't say anything, or I will basically tell them to mind their fucking business. The next myth that we are going to debunk is that carbs are bad and that we should avoid them. It's 2022. I really hope right now in this moment that everybody watching this video understands how essential carbs are to our overall well-being. You need carbs to sustain basic functions, such as using your brain or even just breathing in general. Your body transforms carbs into energy, and it's actually your body's preferred source of energy. And it uses this energy to do so many things: to move, to sleep, to read, to dance, to do whatever your heart desires. These things are easier for us when we are consuming carbs. And you know what else carbs do is they promote and increase serotonin in your body, which is the happiness hormone. And another reason to enjoy them is they taste fantastic. So if anybody in your life is telling you not to eat carbs, or you're seeing online to watch your carbs, to limit them and things like that, it's a huge red flag. Get out of there. That person does not know what they're talking about. The next diet myth that we're going to debunk is that people who diet are smarter and healthier consumers. When we're talking about smart, let's go over it, because I'm looping myself in this category in the past as well. We fall or I've fallen for, and I know many other people have and continue to do so, for diet culture marketing schemes, for weight loss advertisements, for spending money on superfoods, which is actually not even like recognized within like dietetics. Superfoods aren't really a thing, and people tend to spend a lot of their money, whether these are on new apps, whether these are on new training regimens, or just in general, whole foods, organic foods, all of that kind of stuff. Let's consider this for a second. The keto industry is a $5 billion industry, not million, billion. And the idea that keto is motivated by health or wellness is literally all smoke and mirrors. If the idea of eating fruits and vegetables is like a restriction and something that you have to monitor, how is that not a red flag? Diets, just like anything else, basically ask their consumers to subscribe to the false promises of a corporate system that is entirely profit-driven. If anyone thinks for a second that diet companies care about their consumers, it's bullshit. They do not care about you. They do not care about your health. They do not care about your well-being. Because if they did, they wouldn't be trying to trick you into spending money on something that doesn't work. The diet industry is like any other industry. It's like the clothing industry, where they don't care about you. All that they care about is making money. Anyway, this video is getting me heated. I hate diet culture. Let's move on to another myth before my brain explodes. This one is kind of funny to me, but it's cutting out sugar is the best thing that you can do for your health. Nuh-uh, not true. It is proven that by removing sugar completely from somebody's diet, the likelihood of them binge eating on sugary foods or just binging in general is extremely heightened. And you know what else becomes very, very common is the binge restrict cycle. When you restrict something, you're going to want it more. That's how our brains are wired. That's how it works. If I tell you that you can't date or something like that, I'll give an example. My dad wasn't really fond of dating when I was a teenager. I did it anyway, and I just kept it a secret from him, essentially. We're always gonna want what we think we can't have. The grass is always greener, as they say. As human beings, a lot of the time, we want what we can't have. And so if the allure of sugar was already alluring before, it's probably gonna be 10 times more alluring now that you've cut it out. How many times did I say alluring? It was too many times. Glucose, which is found in sugar, or basically a sugar, I'm not 100% sure, is also essential for the functioning of your brain, your central nervous system, as well as your red blood cells. And like carbs, sugar kind of has this rap within the diet community as something that should be demonized or even weaponized in order to sell low carb alternatives, low fat, low sugar, low energy alternatives, essentially. Sugar is not the devil. And there is really not a lot of scientific evidence to prove that food addiction is actually a thing. So when people say that they are addicted to sugar, it's a big red flag to me because it's not really possible to be addicted to food. We can be addicted to the feeling that food gives us, and it really can feel like an addiction. And I'm not taking away from anybody else who feels that way. But the resolution here is not to remove food from your diet because we are addicted, because we need food, right, to survive. But it's actually to fix your relationship with food, to look at your mindset, to look at your restrictive behaviors. Those are things that you would really want to focus on instead of just removing something completely. The next myth that we have is that fresh fruit is better than frozen fruit. And kind of the same thing for vegetables as well. There's a lot of shame about people who eat like canned vegetables or vegetables that are frozen. Eating fresh fruit and vegetables is not only a privilege, but from a nutrition standpoint, it's not really much better than having things that are frozen. Not everyone has access to fresh produce all of the time, whether that is because of their location or their income or whatever it might be. Nobody has to give you an explanation as to why they're not having that fresh produce. Frozen produce is actually cheaper and a lot of the time more convenient because, I mean, if fresh produce goes bad, it goes bad. And if something's in the freezer, you can take your time going through it. And the thing about frozen fruit as well as frozen vegetables is they're usually picked at their peak ripeness. So basically we can capture all of the vitamins, the minerals, the nutrients, and even the taste because that produce is picked when it is at its best. This next one drives me insane. But the myth is that juicing or going on a juice cleanse somehow detoxifies your body. You would think that by now people would know that this wasn't true because so many people have spoken about it, but I still see this all the time. I'm tagged in videos like this, whether it's on TikTok or on Instagram. You know what actually detoxifies your body? Your liver and your kidneys. That's it. And though it can be recommended to add more water and hydration as well as produce into our diet, and when I'm saying diet, I mean just the food that we consume to help perform its natural functions, you do not need to go on any kind of cleanse in order for this to happen. As a matter of fact, depriving your body from food makes it more difficult for your body to process and perform basic functions. So ultimately, no. Juice cleanses don't work. They don't cleanse your body. They don't detoxify anything. Water fasts are just as fucking bad. And you need to eat. You need to eat food. And a lot of pre-made cleanses, things like fit teas, sometimes smoothies from certain companies, are really just flavored laxatives. And you're paying to really just shit your pants. Be careful what you buy. The next myth is something that I hear a lot of, and I unfortunately don't think it's going to go away anytime soon, but it's this idea that skinny or thin equals healthy. I'm going to say this firmly and confidently, but weight is not an indicator of health. I'm gonna let that soak in for a second because I know there's gonna be people in my comments being like, what do you mean it's not an indicator of health? Me. There are so many factors that go into health, and weight and what we eat is a super small percentage of our health. It's around 20%, if not less, of all of our health. We also have to think of our mental health, of our physical health, our emotional health, intellectual health. There are so many elements about health. Stress, sleep, emotional regulation, these are all really important things. But weight is just that attribute that people cannot get over. And you know what's so funny is that people can admit that people can be thin and unhealthy, whether they are smoking a bunch of cigarettes, whether they are not eating consistently, whether they are only sleeping a couple hours per day. None of those things are healthy. And there are thin people who do that and who are clearly unhealthy. So if that exists on one side, it also has to exist on the other side. So you can be thin and unhealthy, just like you can be fat and healthy. And this myth is particularly dangerous for fat people. Weight stigma is a real thing, and I believe I have an entire video on weight stigma, and if I do, I'm going to link it down below. But it can make something as simple as a doctor or physician's visit be very traumatic and like a scary experience. There are countless stories of fat people going to the doctor with specific symptoms, and they're completely ignored and basically just told to lose weight. And in the meantime, sometimes they have tumors, sometimes they have a chronic illness. There are things that need to be addressed, and people in fat bodies deserve just as much care and time from medical practitioners than anybody else. But there's always this idea thrown about that if you lose weight, you're gonna feel better, all your symptoms are gonna go away, and that is not true. When I was at my thinnest, I was not healthy. I'm so much healthier now, and my body has gained weight and it's changed. And the idea that thinner always equals healthier is just, it's blasphemous. I feel like I keep saying, like, this next myth makes me so angry. They all make me angry. But this next myth that we're going to talk about is that there are some foods and diets that can prevent cancer. This fucked up myth takes so much advantage of people who have health anxiety, or even people who have a history of cancer within their family. And a lot of the time, the motivation by claims like this, that this diet cures cancer, is usually to sell some recipe book or just to sell a certain product, a pill, a coaching service. I'm so mad. And this is why, like, I hate calling myself a coach, like a recovery coach. I see myself more as like a mentor. I think I like that word better. But coaches have such a bad rap, because so many of them are just so fucked up with diet culture themselves that instead of actually healing their clients, they end up giving them more disordered behaviors that they have to sort of cycle through themselves. Two great examples of this about diets that basically say that they can cure cancer or that they can prevent cancer, whatever it might be, are intermittent fasting and the paleo diet. And I've done videos on both of those, so if you want a deeper dive, I'm also going to link those in the description down below. But there's so much false information surrounding intermittent fasting as well as the paleo diet. And there are also ridiculous and irresponsible claims about the benefits of the diet. Healthline wrote the following quote, "Intermittent fasting may aid in cancer prevention and increase the effectiveness of chemotherapy." No, it doesn't. All of the research when we're talking about cancer prevention and fasting has only ever been done on lab rats. There are no human studies, no human trials. So where the fuck are we getting this information from? Another point that I want to bring up is that Dr. Hu, who is the chair of the Department of Nutrition at Harvard, says that there is no strong evidence that proves that fasting adds health benefits beyond potential weight loss. And again, weight loss doesn't automatically equal health or health gain. And the famous paleo supporter that I spoke about in my paleo video, which is Pete Evans, has made so many false claims when it comes to paleo, and also says that a lot of our current food right now is the cause of our illnesses. And he cites paleo as a great way to prevent cancer, which again is just so irresponsible, so wrong, and has no grounding. Just some food for thought. The last myth that we're going to talk about is one that is really close to my heart because it's one that I believed for a very long time, one that my teenage self believed, and one that I don't know, I wish I could time travel and go back to my younger self and just tell her that this myth was untrue. But it's this idea that weight loss is going to make you happier. I think a lot of people's experience with this really comes down to our mindset. So if we view weight loss in a positive way and we think that it's healthier and we think it has all of these benefits and all of these false promises, we're going to feel better if we lose weight, because in that beautiful mind of yours, you equate weight loss as this positive thing. So it's not actually that we feel great, but it's because of our mindset that causes those reactions. And because we demonize weight gain, then we find weight gain something more difficult or where we're less happy. If we didn't put weight loss on a pedestal and didn't demonize weight gain, we probably wouldn't think about it in this way at all. The idea of weight loss would not bring us happiness. Same thing as weight gain. We wouldn't really feel happiness. We would just kind of feel inherently neutral and allow our body to do its thing. If you are somebody who has a history of being critical or unkind to yourself, that mentality and mindset is not going to magically go away if you weigh less. This mindset suggests that kindness towards yourself is conditional on whether or not you think you deserve it. So weight loss is not going to make you happy, but things that will eventually make you happy is doing the hard work, unlearning your self-hatred, and also unlearning your self-criticism and having that critical voice no longer be your default and instead replacing that with a supportive or more neutral voice. And losing weight doesn't change any of that. An extensive 2011 review of different weight loss methods by Anthony, I might butcher the last name, but it's Fabricatori. Maybe, I think that's how you pronounce it, who is an assistant professor of psychology at the University of Pennsylvania, provides evidence against this thought that weight loss will sort of lighten our emotional burdens. While extensive lifestyle modifications and therapy and movement has the possibility to improve symptoms of depression, there is absolutely no correlation between weight loss and an improved mood. To conclude this video, I just have some questions for diet culture in general, right? Why do we demonize things that are convenient, like frozen fruits and veggies? Why do we demonize what is tasty or makes us happy? Why do we demonize social eating or comfort food? Food is good for you if it satisfies a craving. Food is good if it fits into your schedule and makes your busy life a little bit less hectic. Food can serve us in so many different ways, and it would truly be a disservice and a shame to only view food through a weight loss lens. Imagine for a second that if we followed every single one of these myths, if we made adjustments to every new myth and falsehood that comes out every other day. This intense policing of your own food, these food rules, these disordered behaviors are not going to lead you down a path where you're happy, where you're confident, or even where you're healthy. this kind of policing is usually at the detriment to both our mental and physical health. It can also limit our happiness, our joy, our social connection and interaction with other individuals. Eat whatever you want, how much you want. Listen to that body of yours, period. What matters most is that you are happy and that you are content. And the next time you hear one of these myths, I really hope that this video is something that you can reference or something that you can go back to just to kind of help stabilize yourself and understand that just because we hear something doesn't make it true. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know if you'd like another installment of Debunking Myths. It was really fun to film. And as always, if you have anything interesting to add, or you just want to come and say hi or share some other myths that you would be interested in me debunking, then kindly leave a comment down below. This is just a reminder to do something kind for yourself today, okay? Okay, bye friends.